Hello, my loves, and welcome back to Tales of Love. Tonight, I have something especially delicious for you, one of those stories that makes your heart race, your breath quicken, and your body crave more. If you adore forbidden romance, passion that burns hotter than it should, and temptation that can't be denied, then you're in the right place. Before we begin, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and of course, subscribe to Tales of Love so you never miss another story that will leave you longing for more. Now, settle in, let your imagination take over, and enjoy tonight's tale, The Brother-in-Law's Temptation, Forbidden Romance While Husband is Away. The house felt too quiet once my husband left for his week-long business trip. I told myself I'd enjoy the solitude, catch up on reading, maybe soak in long baths without interruption. But deep down, the silence unsettled me. That is, until his younger brother, Ethan, showed up at the door with his duffel bag slung over his shoulder and that familiar crooked smile I'd always found a little too charming. He was supposed to stay just 3 nights while some work was being done at his apartment. I'd always thought of Ethan as the playful one, the family's golden boy, handsome, carefree, and just a little reckless. But it had been years since I'd really spent time alone with him. And now, standing in the doorway, I noticed how much he'd changed. His shoulders were broader, his jaw more defined, his eyes carrying a heat that lingered a moment too long when they met mine. "Thanks for letting me crash here," he said, brushing a hand through his dark hair. "I promise I won't be in the way." "You're no trouble," I replied, stepping aside to let him in. "It'll be nice to have some company." Innocent words. Harmless. Yet as I closed the door, I felt the faintest ripple of something I shouldn't have. That first evening, we sat together in the living room. A glass of wine in my hand, a beer in his. We laughed easily, reminiscing about family dinners and vacations, and at times, the way he looked at me made my stomach flutter in a way I couldn't quite name. When he leaned back on the sofa, stretching, his shirt lifted slightly, revealing a hint of toned skin at his waist. I caught myself staring longer than I should have, and when his eyes flicked to mine, I looked away quickly, taking a sip of wine to cover my reaction. "You okay?" he asked with a grin that told me he'd noticed more than I wanted him to. "Perfectly fine," I said, though my voice carried a softness I hadn't intended. As the night grew later, I realized it wasn't just his presence filling the silence. It was something else. A current, faint but undeniable, pulling me toward him. And though nothing happened, the air between us felt charged, as if the first spark had already been lit. The next morning, I woke earlier than usual. I told myself it was just habit, but I knew better. I was aware of Ethan down the hall, the sound of the shower running, the faint hum of his voice as he sang to himself. It was strange, how the house already felt different with him in it. More alive, more electric. I brewed coffee, poured 2 mugs, and when he walked into the kitchen with damp hair and a fitted t-shirt that clung to his chest, I had to force myself not to stare. "Morning," he said with a grin, his voice still rough from sleep. "Morning," I replied, sliding a mug toward him. "Hope you like it strong." "Just how I like it," he said, holding my gaze for a moment longer than necessary. The warmth of the coffee in my hands couldn't compete with the warmth blooming inside me under that look. Later that afternoon, we decided to watch a movie. He stretched out on the sofa, long legs taking up most of it, leaving me to either sit on the floor or squeeze beside him. I chose the latter, pretending it was the only logical choice. Halfway through, I shifted slightly, and his arm brushed against mine. Neither of us moved away. The contact was small, accidental, yet it lingered in my skin, buzzing, distracting me from the film entirely. "You're not even watching," he teased, glancing down at me. I smiled faintly, caught. "Maybe it's just not my type of movie." "Or maybe," he said slowly, lowering his voice, "something else has your attention." My heart skipped, and I turned back to the screen, trying to laugh it off. "Don't flatter yourself." But when his shoulder pressed lightly against mine, when his scent wrapped around me, clean soap mixed with something darker, something masculine, I couldn't deny the truth. He was right. That night, after he'd gone to bed, I lay awake for hours. I thought about the way he looked at me, the way my body reacted without permission. I thought about how wrong it was and yet how thrilling. My husband trusted me. Ethan was family. This was a line I knew I should never cross. And yet, deep down, I wondered how much longer I could keep pretending there wasn't something building between us, something dangerous and impossible to ignore. The third evening felt different. The air was heavier, the silences between us longer, filled with something unspoken. I cooked dinner, and Ethan offered to help. We moved around the kitchen together, brushing past each other in the narrow space, the casual touches lingering just a little too long. When he reached over me to grab a plate from the cupboard, his chest pressed lightly against my back. The contact was innocent enough, but my breath caught, and I froze for half a second before forcing myself to continue chopping vegetables. "Sorry," he murmured close to my ear, his voice low. "No problem," I whispered, though my hands trembled slightly on the knife. Over dinner, we talked about everything and nothing, his job, his friends, memories of childhood. But beneath the laughter and easy banter, I felt the pull, like gravity drawing me closer to him. His eyes kept finding mine, holding them for just a beat too long, until I had to glance away before the heat in them consumed me. After the dishes were done, we settled in the living room again. A storm had rolled in, rain pattering against the windows, thunder rumbling in the distance. The lights flickered once, and he chuckled. "Looks like we might lose power," he said, stretching out on the sofa. "Guess we'll have to keep each other entertained." There was a teasing edge in his voice, but also something deeper, something that made my pulse quicken. We talked late into the night, the kind of raw, intimate conversation that only happens when the world outside feels far away. He told me about the women he dated, how none of them seemed to hold his attention. I admitted I sometimes felt restless in my marriage, though I chose my words carefully. At one point, he leaned closer, his arm draped along the back of the sofa, so close I could feel the warmth of him. "You know," he said softly, eyes fixed on mine, "you're easy to talk to. Easier than anyone else." I swallowed hard, my lips parting slightly. I feel the same." The room was quiet except for the rain and the pounding of my heart. His gaze dropped to my mouth, and for a moment, it felt inevitable, like we were already past the point of no return. But I forced myself to lean back, breaking the spell. "It's late," I said quickly, my voice barely steady. "We should get some sleep." For a second, disappointment flashed across his face. Then he smiled, slow and knowing, as if he'd read exactly what was running through my mind. "Good night," he murmured, his voice laced with something that promised this wasn't over. As I climbed into bed, my body ached with the tension of restraint. I knew I was walking on a dangerous edge. But the truth was undeniable. Part of me didn't want to step back. The storm worsened overnight. I woke to the sound of heavy rain against the windows, the house shuddering with each clap of thunder. When I padded down the hall in the dark, the power had already gone out. No lights, no hum of the refrigerator, just shadows and silence, broken only by the storm outside. I found Ethan in the living room, lighting a candle. The glow cast soft golden light across his face, highlighting the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of his lips. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice low, almost intimate in the darkness. "Not with all this noise," I said, hugging my arms around myself. "Come sit," he said, gesturing toward the sofa. No sense facing it alone. I hesitated, but only for a moment before crossing the room. The candlelight flickered between us, throwing shadows that made the space feel smaller, more private. He draped a blanket over my shoulders, and when his fingers brushed my skin, a shiver coursed through me that had nothing to do with the cold. We sat close, closer than before, our knees touching beneath the blanket. The storm raged outside, but inside, it was quiet, every second stretching, thick with unspoken words. "You're shaking," he murmured, leaning in. "I'm fine," I whispered, though my breath betrayed me, uneven and shallow. His hand slid over mine, warm and steady, his thumb grazing my skin. I should have pulled away. I should have reminded myself, who we were. But I didn't. I couldn't. "Tell me to stop," he said softly, his eyes locked on mine. The words hung in the air, fragile, waiting. My lips parted, but no protest came. Instead, I stayed perfectly still as he leaned closer, the heat of his breath mingling with mine. And then, finally, his mouth brushed against mine, soft at first, almost tentative. A question. A test. The world seemed to fall away. The storm, the darkness, everything vanished except the feel of his lips, the surge of forbidden desire that had been building for days. My hand lifted to his chest, not to push him away, but to hold him closer, to feel the rapid beat of his heart under my palm. The kiss deepened, growing urgent, hungry, as if all the restraint we'd clung to had shattered in an instant. His hand cupped my cheek, tilting my head as his tongue teased mine, and I melted into him, every nerve alive, every thought drowned in the rush of need. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, the silence between us was louder than the storm. His forehead rested against mine, his voice rough when he whispered, "I've wanted this since the moment I walked in the door." My chest rose and fell rapidly, guilt and desire colliding in a dizzying wave. "We shouldn't," I breathed, though even as I said it, my body betrayed me, leaning into his touch, craving more. His lips brushed my ear, sending another shiver racing through me. "Maybe not," he murmured. "But tell me you don't want it too." I closed my eyes, surrender trembling on my tongue. The truth was dangerous, but it burned too hot to deny. I didn't answer his question, not with words. Instead, I tilted my face back to his and kissed him again, deeper this time, surrendering completely to the pull that had been haunting me since he arrived. The guilt still whispered at the edges of my mind, but it was drowned out by the overwhelming heat of his mouth, the press of his body, the way his hands framed my face, as if I were the only thing he had ever wanted. The blanket slipped from my shoulders as he pulled me closer, my body arching into his. Every touch felt like fire, every kiss like a sin I couldn't resist. When his fingers slid down my arm and laced with mine, I felt a thrill so sharp it made my breath catch. We moved together in the dim candlelight, tentative at first, then with growing urgency. His lips traced the line of my throat, his voice low and ragged against my skin. "I can't stop," he murmured. "Not with you." And I didn't want him to stop. My hands found his hair, pulling him closer, urging him on. The storm outside roared, but inside, the world had narrowed to just us, the heat of his body, the taste of his mouth, the way he touched me like he'd been waiting forever. We gave in completely, tangled in each other, every barrier we'd fought to hold shattering in the rush of forbidden passion. It was reckless, dangerous, wrong, and yet it was the most alive I had felt in years. When it was over, we lay in silence, the storm finally quieting outside. His arm was draped over me, his breath warm against my hair. The guilt lingered, yes, but so did the sweetness, the undeniable connection that had sparked between us. "I don't know what happens after this," I whispered. "Neither do I," he admitted, kissing my temple. "But I know I don't regret it." And deep down, despite everything, neither did I. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, the storm gone, but its mark left on us forever. I knew life would resume, that choices would have to be made, that lines had been crossed. But in that moment, with Ethan's hand still holding mine, I allowed myself one truth. Sometimes temptation is too powerful to resist, and sometimes giving in is the only way to feel truly alive. And that, my loves, is tonight's story. If you felt your heart race, if the heat of this forbidden romance lingered in your mind, don't forget to like this video, share your thoughts in the comments, and of course, subscribe to Tales of Love so you'll never miss another passionate story that will leave you breathless. Until next time, stay with me for more, where love is always a little dangerous and always unforgettable.